Whoa. Look at this. I think it's a bluegill, and I think it's got an attitude. Look at that. Look at that. Love it when a bluegill can break your line. Oh no, it's a nice crappie. Look at there, that's what we're here for. Look at that. And I tell you what, it's early in the morning, but late in the year. And I tell you what, this is one of my favorite times of the year. You know, come out here, kick open old holes, catching panfish right underneath the ice. These fish are getting ready to stage up to go up into their spawning areas, and just a tremendous opportunity. Look around, there's nobody out here. Just a phenomenal time of the year. That's just a nice crappie. Let that fish get its freedom. There she goes. You know, we're in northwest Wisconsin, which you look at this area, there's all kinds of flowages and lakes and, you know, just lots of fishing opportunities, lots of great panfish opportunities. But, you know, things that we're doing here today, you know, work in a lot of different places, whether it's Wisconsin, Minnesota, you know, and beyond. Basically what it is, it's, you know, we're on a lake, fairly large lake, okay? And obviously, you know, you talk about basins with crappies. But the thing about it is you look at the main basin, the main lake, that's a pretty big basin, and a lot of times it can be pretty intimidating. So a lot of times what we're doing is we're looking for these secondary basins, these small bays and disconnected lakes that have a smaller basin to tackle. And a lot of times you might have a basin anywhere from say 30 to 15 feet of water. That's kind of that perfect depth. And the thing to remember is that these fish spend most of their winter out on the basin, and then they'll come up into these areas of spawn. And so basically you just connect the dots. Look at where these fish spawn, look at the basins where these fish winter, and just find these ledges and edges in between point A and point B. And a lot of times that's where we're finding crappies. And so this is a pretty universal pattern that works all across the ice belt. Here's a big mark. Love those big marks, those crappie marks. Come on, I got one all over me. There he is. Come on up. Oh, beautiful. There's probably not going to be that many more days where we can do it. Late ice is kind of down to the week. We're supposed to get some clouds and rain moving in this afternoon. About that tiny little jig out of there. But yeah, just a great crappie. One of my favorite times of the year. Some of the best ice fishing of the year. A lot of times, you know, we're just walking out. Pretty simple fishing. These locations are pretty predictable. We're just using soft plastics, and that fish got my plastic. I'll show you here. Tiny little jig with these really small plastics. Instead of trying to thread it on, sometimes it works best just to double hook it. You can thread these little plastics on. Sometimes you're a better man than I am, but just like you'd double hook a minnow. Just go up and down, just right out the back. Good to go.
Oh, that's a good one. Creamed it. That feels nice. There's a nice one. That's how the morning's going. It's only gonna get better. We got a little sun today. Sun's huge in the late ice period, spring period, I guess you'd want to call it. We're soaking up the last bit of decent ice. We had to walk across the plank to get on the lake today, but the ice is still plenty thick. We measured probably 20 inches yet, so we walked out, brought as little gear as possible, and we're just gonna set the hook on a bunch of hungry panfish today. That's the goal anyway. I grew up in Minneapolis and I moved to Wisconsin in 2000 after I got out of college. The reason I never went back to Minneapolis because Northwest Wisconsin offers a ton of things to do outdoors. whether it be lakes, rivers, flowages, trails, camping, hiking, what have you. It's a special place to me. I grew up as a fisherman. I've taken on hunting as I've gotten older, but Northwest Wisconsin has a lot of things to offer, and it's a fun place to be.
Well, there he is. Get the transducer out of the hole here. Oh, come on. Beautiful. And this is gypsy fish. I mean, we're just hopping around. There's holes all over out here. We're just kicking open holes, hopping from hole to hole, pick off a fish here, pick up a fish there. You know, maybe you settle into a hole, catch 4 or 5. And then you check a couple holes with nothing, and then you get on them again. They're just skating around here, and probably what we'll end up doing. This works really well. It's late ice. We don't have many days left. You might as well throw all the stops at them. But you know, you get in areas where you've got these grids of holes, and if you got little gaps where there's no holes, you know, when the fishing slows down, just go through and drill through those areas, and sometimes it'll push the fish around. But it's amazing. It's almost like these fish learn to live a certain distance from the holes, where they, you know, they get caught and they, you know, they hear the commotion. They can be real spooky to noise.
So what we got going on here, we're basically fishing a staging area for these panfish, late ice. Looking for active fish that are high in the water column, and then that's kind of what we're targeting. So basically they're staging up high in the water column, getting ready to move up to the shallows. So on the Vexlar, sometimes you're going to see 3, 4, 5, 6 marks all stacked together, and they're just basically roaming the edges of these weeds and the shorelines where they're going to eventually spawn. And we're just bopping around. When we mark a fish, we fish the hole. If we don't mark a fish, we just move on, and that's just kind of how the day is going to go along. The more holes you fish in, the better chances you are marking fish and getting some active fish to go.
Seems like one fish out of a hole right off the bat, usually on the first drop. If there's a crappie around, it'll pop it. And then after that, I give it about a minute to 2 minutes, and if nothing, move on to the next one. Using a 2.5 millimeter gold tungsten with a longer shank. I like the longer shanks versus the short shanks because plastics sit on them better, in my opinion. With a motor oil colored Jamie plastic, Clam Outdoors. And then I'm using the Clam Frost 2-pound fluorocarbon for line. So today, you know, you get a lot of looks when you walk out onto the ice with a 60-inch long rod on your hand and what looks like a fly reel on the back end, and you're standing on ice. Being able to hop around, I really think too also an indicator on the end of it. The bites are light. A lot of them were up bites. It takes that spring and it just unloads it. Everything you catch looks like it's a 2-pound crappie on a rod like that. They bend. I mean, the light line, the whole setup, it's fun and you get a lot of looks, but as you see, you're starting to see more and more of that too. Everywhere I go, I see long rods in more guys' hands. It's catching on. It's a fun way to fish. It's definitely a fun thing to try.
So, you know, Dax and I, you know, we caught fish, but Derek caught a lot of fish. He caught more fish than all of us combined. I mean, way more. And, you know, he was doing a few things different. You know, he started off with a small jig or a smaller jig, figured that out, which, you know, might not even be a profile thing. It might be just how slow that jig's coming down below the ice when those fish are right there, you know. And, you know, then the longer rod where, you know, if you're only going to fish the top 3 feet of the water column, it's pretty easy to do with a 5-foot rod. You're just dipping and dunking. But, you know, sometimes, you know, some of those are the best lessons because it teaches you something. But it's cool to come to different places and fish with different people and just seeing some things that kind of get your wheels to turn. I mean, that's why we do this. We'll never have all the answers, but we just want to be students of fishing and learn as much as we can while we're here, you know. And so it's always cool to kind of get your eyes open to different things.
Well, here comes one's rocking in it. Pound it, dude. He's always on there. This one's gonna stay on. Oh yeah, that's a decent one. If he doesn't get stuck in the ice. There we go. Another dandy. I mean, they're biting good today. Beauty. Another nice 10, 11 inch crappie. All fun. Right down the hole. See ya. Red mark, red mark. Oh boy. Look at that one. There we go. That is a real one there. I just moved holes. Just check out a fresh hole. Dropped down and my bait disappeared right away. About as easy as it gets right there. Nice 10, 11 inch crappie. Beautiful hues on the scales. Nothing better. Fishing with no gloves, even better. I'll take them fish all day long. Most holes have fish. You just want to get the ones that are the most aggressive. Hopefully, you know, we always want them to be the bigger ones, but just catching fish late ice it's always fun. It's kind of bittersweet, you know, because you got the end of a season, but we're all excited about a little warmer weather too, so we just try to get the last few hook sets on the ice before all the ice deteriorates and melts, which will happen shortly here. I think the key for late ice when it's easier to be mobile is to be mobile. So basically just fish as many holes as possible, and hopefully there's a fish or two in each hole that want to bite, and you can set the hook on them and have a good day.
You know, it's pretty typical, you know, something you expect to see, you know, these crappies right underneath the ice, or sometimes they're so high, it's almost like they have to turn on their side to hit the jig, where probably the biggest thing I worry about is making sure I've got just enough line down where I'm actually not just jigging in my own hole. Because, I mean, you're right there, you know, 6 inches, a foot underneath the ice, 2 feet underneath the ice. So we're fishing high, but it seems like you get late in the winter and these fish get higher and higher, in the sense that, you know, at least the top half of the water column is where it's at. But, you know, even throughout the year, you know, if there's a common formula, you know, day in and day out as far as trying to catch the biggest or bigger fish in a particular area, fish high. I mean, fish higher than what you normally fish. Say if the fish are running 5 to 10 feet off the bottom in 20 feet of water, you know, run 5 feet above where you normally fish. But when these fish are right underneath the ice, the biggest thing is make sure that you keep your transducer high. Slide it right up to the top. The higher you can keep that transducer, the better you can see right below the ice. You don't want to drop that transducer down to the bottom of the ice. Keep it high. Keep it straight up and down. A lot of times you have to physically move your jig right up underneath the transducer, you know, in order to catch that jig. But We're targeting those high flyers.
They're starting to pick up a little bit here as the evening goes on. Fish are getting bigger. We've been struggling with a lot of smaller fish through the day, but now they're starting to get a little bit nicer in size as the evening goes on. And if you notice, they're getting a little bit higher up in the water column too. The last 3 that I've caught, you can barely see on the Vexlar. They're so high right underneath the ice. So hopefully this continues into the evening and picks up and the fish just keep getting a little bit bigger.
Oh, that feels like a decent one. Oh, yeah. A nice 11-inch crappie. It's the old clam drop kick right in the nose right there. Beautiful little bait. Clam drop kick, 1/16 ounce.
You know, so fishing right underneath the ice, you know, and having the confidence to fish right underneath the ice, you know, it's something that you just learn to acquire, in the sense that if you're not confident with this, you know, it's really hard for some people to fish blind. It's really hard to, you know, keep your jig up high, especially if you see marks down below that are usually smaller bluegills, you know, and just keep fishing high and just getting that touch. But it's definitely a developed touch, but it's definitely, you know, something to learn and something to put in your bag of tricks, because a lot of different places where crappies swim, I mean, this is a very common pattern that happens across the ice belt. You know, getting good at fishing shallow, getting good at fishing for fish that are right underneath the ice, where there's a certain touch, a certain finesse in fishing in basically 6 inches, 4 inches, a foot below the ice. You know, it's definitely something that will help you catch a lot of crappies. I mean, not just late ice either. And so, you know, definitely, you know, something to get confident in late ice this year is, if nothing else is working, you're probably fishing below the fish.
Come on, here's the fish. Come on, eat it. There it is. Oh yeah, there's a crappie. Come here. Perfect. I tell you what, this is one of the perfect ways to catch a crappie, right underneath the ice. There's like probably 2.5 feet of ice left. And hanging that jig about 6 inches below the ice. Fun way to catch a crappie.
Felt good on the hook set. Let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, there's a nice one. I mean, right in the snout. You can't get a better hook set right there. Boom. That's a dandy there. Nice thick one. Beauty. See ya.
Come on, eat it. There it is. Oh yeah, there's a crappie. Come here, open up. It's getting dark. I can hardly see the spring bobber. What a fun day. Pretty much caught fish all day, just perfect eating size fish. You wanted to fry some fish up. I tell you, this is a classic pattern that works on so many different bodies of water. I mean, we're in northwest Wisconsin here now, but this is crappie 101 in the sense that you got your bays and wintering areas, you've got the place where they spawn, you just connect the dots, and between A and B, you're gonna find crappies. And so just a fun, awesome opportunity at late ice.